Chosen one, as you sit here, listening to this message, you are not here by accident. This moment is not just a random encounter or a chance notification that caught your eye. You were summoned hand-picked by God Himself to hear a word that carries divine significance. This is not just any message. It's a divine revelation sent straight from the throne room of heaven, a message that has been crafted with you in mind. The very fact that you are hearing these words right now is proof that you are walking in alignment with something greater than yourself. You are here because God sees you, because He has called you for such a time as this, and He is ready to reveal the impact your actions have made. This is a moment where heaven is speaking directly to your spirit, where the very atmosphere around you is charged with divine purpose, and you are being made aware of it. It's important to understand the uniqueness of this moment. You were not led here by algorithms or by random chance, as you might find in the world system. No, chosen one, you were summoned by God, who watches every hidden moment of your life. The attention you are receiving is not by the design of any earthly force, but by the Creator of the universe, the one who holds everything in His hands. This is not a coincidence, but a divine appointment. Heaven knew you would be here hearing this word at exactly this moment. In a world full of distractions and noise, God has orchestrated your steps to bring you to this point, to open your ears and your heart to the profound truth that is about to be revealed. His gaze is fixed upon you, and His voice is calling out to your spirit, confirming that you are seen and valued in ways you may not yet fully comprehend. Now, let's turn our attention to what has prompted this divine revelation. You might think that what you did this morning was ordinary, just another day, just another rise from your bed, just another routine. But chosen one, what you did this morning was far from ordinary. In fact, it caused a profound ripple through the spiritual realm, a ripple that was felt in the heavenly courts. While you were going about what seemed like an insignificant moment, heaven was watching, and heaven was moved. Your actions, small as they may seem to the world, have shaken the very foundation of the heavens. Heaven paused. The angels turned their gaze, and even God Himself whispered, "Look at my child." The weight of what you did, the sincerity, the humility, the obedience, these things caught the attention of God in a way that few moments in life ever will. The spiritual realm saw something in you that you did not even realize was there. Your actions, your choices, your obedience, even in the smallest moments, have spiritual significance far beyond what meets the eye. What you may have thought was mundane heaven, marked as extraordinary. Your act of rising, your simple movement, your quiet declaration of resilience in the face of life's challenges sent a shockwave through eternity. It is in moments like this that God sees you for who you truly are, the strength you carry, the spirit that refuses to give up, and the faith that still burns brightly despite the obstacles you face. You are not just surviving, chosen one. You are moving mountains in the unseen realms. And heaven is paying attention. This morning, you may have woken up feeling like it was just another day. You may have simply gotten out of bed, done your usual routine, and carried on with life as it unfolded in front of you. But let me tell you, chosen one, your actions today have done far more than just mark the passage of time. What seemed like a simple movement, a small act, was noticed in ways that the world can't even begin to comprehend. You might think that what you did was insignificant, just part of your normal routine. But heaven saw it differently. In the eyes of God, it wasn't small. It wasn't insignificant. It was a monumental act of devotion. Heaven took note of every detail, of every movement, of every moment that you chose to stand up, push forward, and refuse to be defeated. Every moment of perseverance, every ounce of strength you summoned despite the weariness, was recognized by the Creator who sees not just the surface, but the heart. You may have felt tired, maybe even overwhelmed, but your actions spoke volumes in the spiritual realm. It was a message to heaven, a message that even though you were carrying weight, even though you were battling internal storms, you chose to rise anyway. Your actions sent a ripple through the spiritual world, stirring angels, shifting the atmosphere, and aligning your will with God's divine purpose for you. In the quiet moments of this morning, you might have wondered if what you were doing mattered. You may have doubted the significance of your seemingly mundane task. But chosen one, in the eyes of heaven, your obedience was like a beacon shining in the darkness. Your willingness to rise, to push through the heaviness, to carry on despite everything trying to hold you down, created a ripple that reached into eternity. That small act, that quiet movement, was your devotion being made visible in the spiritual realm. God saw your effort not as a trivial action, but as a powerful declaration of your faith, your trust, and your alignment with His will. He saw your sacrifice not just in grand gestures, but in your ability to keep going when your body, mind, and soul were weary. Heaven noticed your willingness to be obedient, to stand firm, even when the world around you seemed uncertain or chaotic. In that moment, God did not just see a person getting out of bed. He saw a warrior rising, a child of the King, stepping forward into the light of His presence. God witnesses the strength in your weakness, chosen one. He saw you rise this morning, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. He saw you face the day's challenges with a spirit that refused to break even when the weight of the world seemed too much to bear. Your strength wasn't found in perfection, but in your perseverance. Heaven witnessed your quiet struggle, the silent battles you fought when no one else was around to see. In those moments when you thought no one was watching, God was. He saw you push past the exhaustion, the doubts, and the fears. He saw your heart bruised and battered, yet unyielding, still fighting, still trusting, still believing. Your strength was not in how much you could carry on your own, but in how much you could endure through Him. God knows that sometimes the greatest victories are won, not in the moments of triumph, but in the quiet perseverance of standing up when the world says to sit down. And that's exactly what you did this morning. You rose. You took another step forward. You continued. And that chosen one was a profound act of devotion, one that didn't go unnoticed by heaven. It's easy to think that devotion is only shown in grand acts of service, in loud declarations, in visible acts of strength. But true devotion often shines brightest in the moments when no one else is watching. True devotion is seen in the quiet decisions to rise when you feel like staying down. It's found in the act of continuing when the world doesn't seem to notice your struggle. And that's exactly what you did this morning. Your actions may have seemed small, but they were mighty in the spiritual realm. Your simple choice to push forward, to rise up, despite the obstacles, was an act of true devotion. Heaven saw it as such, and it sent a shockwave through the spiritual realm, stirring angels and causing a shift in the atmosphere. What felt like just another morning to you was a profound moment of spiritual significance. You may not have felt it in your body, but your spirit was making waves. Your devotion to God's will, even in the smallest of moments, was being marked by heaven as a powerful act of faith. God does not measure devotion by the size of the act, but by the heart behind it. Your act this morning, though seemingly simple, was an expression of obedience to His will. It was your declaration that no matter the weight of the world, you would rise. You would continue to trust, continue to believe, continue to move forward in His strength. Heaven didn't just see you getting up. It saw you taking a stand against everything that tried to hold you back. Your devotion to God was made visible through your perseverance. It wasn't the grand gestures that mattered most, but the quiet decisions to rise, to keep going, to endure. And because of that, heaven responded. Heaven took note. And your action, though small in your eyes, sent a ripple that is now shifting the course of your destiny. In those quiet moments of doubt, when you felt the weight of your struggles, heaven saw your resilience. When you wondered if your efforts were even making a difference, God saw the impact you were having in the unseen realm. Your strength wasn't in how much you could do, but in how much you could endure with faith. Your actions today have laid the foundation for something greater to come. Every step you took in obedience, every moment of sacrifice, every instance of devotion is setting the stage for God to move mightily in your life. Heaven is responding because of your devotion, chosen one. The ripple you've sent through the spiritual realm is just the beginning. God is honoring your perseverance, and He is about to open doors, remove obstacles, and unleash blessings that will follow your obedience. So don't underestimate the power of the small things. God doesn't overlook the quiet moments of devotion. He honors them. And today, heaven has marked your actions as a spiritual victory. You have made a lasting impact, not just on earth, but in eternity. Keep rising, keep moving forward. Your actions are making waves that will echo through the heavens. As you rose from your bed this morning, you may not have realized that the act itself was more than just a physical movement. In the natural, it seemed like any other day, a simple act of getting up, putting one foot in front of the other. But in the spiritual realm, it was so much more. The very act of rising was a declaration of war against the forces of darkness, a testament to the fact that no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how dark the night, you were still standing. Heaven saw it differently from how you may have perceived it. What seemed like an ordinary, mundane action was actually a moment of spiritual warfare, a powerful act of defiance against the enemy's attempts to hold you down, to keep you trapped in despair, and to prevent you from moving forward in your divine destiny. Every time you chose to rise, you were taking ground in the invisible battle that rages around you, a battle that is often unseen by human eyes, but felt deeply by the soul. This battle, though hidden from the physical realm, is every bit as real as the world we live in. The enemy may have thought it was just a small, insignificant moment when you rose, but in truth, it was a monumental act of spiritual warfare that the enemy could not ignore. With every step you took, heaven saw the courage, the fight, the perseverance that you were drawing upon resources that could only come from the deep well of faith you've been cultivating. The weight you felt this morning wasn't just physical exhaustion. It wasn't merely the fatigue of the body from lack of rest, or the struggles of life weighing down on your shoulders. No, chosen one, there was something much deeper at play. There was a battle happening inside of you, a battle between your weariness and your spirit, between the heaviness that tried to keep you down and the strength within you that refused to be defeated. You may not have realized it, but in that moment of rising, you were engaging in spiritual warfare. You were fighting against the forces that wanted to break you, that wanted to see you fall. You were pushing back against the negative voices, the doubts, the fears, and the lies that the enemy has been whispering into your heart. You were saying, "I will not stay down. I will not give up. I will rise again." Your act of rising was not just a physical motion. It was a declaration of victory in the unseen realms. Heaven saw the tears you had cried, the silent prayers you had prayed in the night when no one was around to hear, and the unanswered struggles that had been weighing on your heart. Heaven witnessed the emotional and spiritual battles you were fighting, the ones that nobody else could see. And in that moment, when you chose to rise, you showed that you were still standing strong, still moving forward, still in the fight. That was the victory, the refusal to let the enemy have the final say. It was your declaration that you would not be silenced, that you would not be defeated, and that you would continue walking in the strength that God had provided, no matter how difficult the journey got. Even though it seemed like just a simple task, getting out of bed, it was an act of profound spiritual significance. Heaven saw the battle happening on the inside. The exhaustion, the weight of the world pressing down on your shoulders, the spiritual fatigue that comes from fighting battles that nobody else can see. But heaven also saw the strength you summoned in that moment, the quiet courage to keep going, even when your body wanted to give up. You may have felt weak. You may have felt weary, but heaven saw the heart of a warrior within you, a spirit that refused to be crushed by the challenges, a soul that chose to rise above the struggles. This morning's action became more than just a routine. It became a prophetic declaration, a statement to the enemy and to the heavens that you were still here, that your spirit was still alive, still full of hope, still full of faith, still ready to fight. The world may not have seen it, but heaven did. And what heaven saw was a warrior rising, a child of God, who despite the odds, refused to give up and was willing to continue the journey. In that moment, you weren't just fighting for survival. You were fighting for the destiny that God has ordained for you. You were fighting for the promises that He has made to you, the future, that He has planned, the calling that He has placed upon your life. Your rise was not just physical, it was spiritual. It was a declaration to the world of who you are in Christ. It was a testimony that the darkness has no power over you, that no matter what you've been through, you are still moving forward in God's will. As you rose, you activated something in the spirit. It wasn't just the physical act of standing up. It was a spiritual movement, a turning of the tide, a shift in the unseen realm. The enemy had hoped to keep you down. He had hoped that the weight of your struggles would crush your spirit, that you would be so overwhelmed that you wouldn't be able to rise again. But you did. And in that act, you not only defied the enemy, but you also set in motion divine intervention. Your rise was like a signal to heaven, a beacon of light that called forth the help and strength you needed. Heaven responded to your obedience. Angels were dispatched. The spiritual realm reacted with power, shifting circumstances, breaking chains, and opening doors that had previously been closed. Your act of rising wasn't just personal. It had cosmic implications. It was a message to the enemy that his plans for your life would not prevail, and a declaration to heaven that you were still standing strong, still trusting, and still ready to walk in your divine destiny. In the spiritual realm, what felt like a small, mundane act was actually a profound and powerful movement. The enemy may have thought it was just a simple act of survival, but heaven saw it for what it truly was, a victory. Your perseverance, your willingness to rise, despite everything trying to hold you back, was a prophetic act of spiritual warfare. You were pushing back the darkness, advancing the kingdom of God, and declaring that the battle was not over. You were showing heaven that your faith was still alive, still fighting, still holding on to the promises of God. And heaven responded. Your rise was more than just a physical act. It was a prophetic declaration of God's victory. In your life, a spiritual moment that changed the course of your destiny. So chosen. One, don't underestimate the power of your actions, even the small ones. They carry weight in the spiritual realm. Every time you rise, every time you push forward, every time you declare that you will not quit, you are engaging in spiritual warfare. You are advancing in your calling, and heaven is moving on your behalf. Your actions are making waves in the invisible world, and heaven is taking note. Keep rising. Keep fighting. Keep trusting. The enemy may have thought he had you down, but your rise is a declaration that God is still with you, and his victory is assured. As you took that step this morning, as you rose up in the midst of everything that tried to weigh you down, heaven responded in ways that you may not have been able to perceive in the natural realm. But make no mistake, chosen one, your actions did not go unnoticed. The moment you rose, the moment you decided to take that first step, despite your exhaustion, despite your doubts, heaven took notice. In that instant, angels paused. The records in the heavenly courts were opened, and God himself whispered in admiration, recognizing the strength you had shown. This was not a quiet, unnoticed victory. Heaven saw it, heaven acknowledged it, and heaven responded. The spiritual realm took note of your actions, not just as a physical movement, but as a deep, powerful declaration of your perseverance and your unwavering faith. The weight you carried, the battle you fought silently, the internal struggles you endured, all of it was recognized by the Creator of the universe. Your rise became a signal in the Spirit, a testament to your strength, to your resolve, and to your commitment to keep moving forward no matter the cost. In that moment, the spiritual atmosphere shifted. Angels watched in awe as you made a choice that was not dictated by ease or convenience, but by a deep, unyielding trust in God's plan for your life. You may not have seen it, but in that moment, your perseverance became a declaration of spiritual victory. The world may not have applauded you, but heaven did. The people around you may not have recognized the depth of your struggle, but God did. He saw the quiet endurance, the silent fight that took place in the depths of your soul. Every act of perseverance, even when no one else was watching, became a victory in the spiritual realm. Your resilience in the face of hardship is what pleases God. The strength it took to rise, to keep going, to continue the journey, even when the weight of life seemed overwhelming, this is what heaven honors. God does not reward convenience, chosen one. He rewards endurance. It is not the easy moments that bring glory to God, but the moments of struggle, the times when you feel like giving up, but choose to press on anyway. Every time you rise, every time you refuse to be defeated, you are stepping into the divine response that heaven has for you. Your persistence is your declaration of faith, and that declaration is heard in the heavenly courts. Heaven is moved by your willingness to endure, by your ability to keep going, even when it feels impossible. Your silent endurance is not weakness. It is a demonstration of spiritual strength that cannot be shaken. This is the kind of strength that God honors, strength that rises up in faith even when the body and the soul feel like they are failing. Your actions this morning, though seemingly small in the natural, were a profound act of spiritual warfare. And heaven's response was swift, immediate, and powerful. Angels watched as you rose, as you fought through the exhaustion and the emotional weight. In that moment, heaven saw more than just a person getting out of bed. They saw a warrior, a child of God, who refused to let the enemy win. Your perseverance, even in the silence, became a declaration of victory. It was a victory that reached far beyond the physical realm. It was a victory that resonated in the spiritual realm, breaking chains, dismantling walls, and moving heaven and earth on your behalf. Heaven recognizes what the world often overlooks. It sees the quiet, unseen struggles that shape the soul. While others may see only the outward appearance, God sees the heart. And what He saw in you this morning was a heart that refused to quit, a heart that chose to trust, a heart that chose to believe even when everything seemed against it. That is the heart that heaven honors. That is the heart that God delights in. When you rose this morning, even in your weariness, you declared to the spiritual realm that you were still in the fight, that you were still moving forward, that you were still trusting in God's plan. And heaven responded with favor, with strength, with divine reinforcement. The strength it took for you to rise this morning, even when fatigue clouded your thoughts and emotions, was not unnoticed by God. He honors that strength, chosen one, the strength that comes from pushing through the pain, the tiredness, the doubt. That is the kind of strength that aligns with God's will. He doesn't reward those who seek the easy way. He rewards those who are willing to endure, who are willing to keep pressing forward even when the road is tough. This is the spiritual victory that God is looking for. It is not the victories that are loud and celebrated, but the victories that are fought in the quiet, unseen places where no one else is watching but heaven itself. God honors the strength that rises from within, the strength that comes from choosing faith over fear, perseverance over quitting, and hope over despair. Every time you choose to rise, you are participating in a divine partnership with heaven. You are allowing God to work in and through you, even in the moments when it feels like you're standing alone. But you're not alone, chosen one. God is with you. Heaven is with you. Every act of perseverance, every silent prayer, every quiet decision to keep going, these are the things that God uses to move mountains, to shift spiritual atmospheres, and to bring about breakthroughs. Your strength and weakness is what pleases God. Your perseverance, even when you don't feel like it, is what moves heaven to act on your behalf. God does not reward convenience. He rewards endurance. The strength it took for you to rise this morning, chosen one, was honored by heaven. It was a strength that wasn't seen on the outside, but it was deeply felt in the spiritual realm. It was a strength that resonated with the very heart of God. Every time you rise, every time you refuse to give up, you are moving closer to the destiny that God has prepared for you. Heaven has taken notice, and the divine response is already being set in motion. You may not see the immediate results of your perseverance, but trust that heaven is working behind the scenes. Every step you take in faith, every movement you make in obedience, is making way for the breakthrough you've been praying for. Heaven is responding to your endurance, and divine intervention is already on its way. So, chosen one, don't grow weary. Keep pressing forward. Keep trusting. Your endurance is being honored by God, and it is causing spiritual shifts that will align your life with His perfect plan. The victory is already yours. Heaven is moving on your behalf, and nothing you've endured in faith has been wasted. Every act of endurance, no matter how small it seems, has caused a ripple in the heavens that is now working to bring about your breakthrough. Keep standing. Keep rising. Heaven has responded, and your victory is secured. The moment you rose this morning, what seemed like a simple act of getting out of bed was in reality a spiritual victory. To the world, it may have appeared like just another routine movement, a necessary task, a part of your normal day. But in the unseen realm, it was monumental. Heaven did not see a tired person merely standing up. They saw a warrior rising from the ashes of battle, someone who had fought in the quiet moments of their heart and emerged victorious. Your act of rising wasn't just about physical action. It was a declaration that no matter how heavy life had become, no matter how overwhelming the burdens were, you chose to stand. You chose to keep going. You chose to rise in faith and refuse to be defeated. That simple act, which might have felt like nothing more than the start of another day to you, was a powerful statement to the spiritual realm. It shook the heavens. It caused ripples in eternity. It was more than just a physical movement. It was the defiance of darkness, the declaration that you were still in the fight, and the proof that the enemy had no power over your spirit. What heaven saw in you this morning. Chosen one was courage dressed in survival. Heaven saw you not as someone just going through the motions, but as someone who had been through the fire, someone who had faced storms and yet still found the strength to rise again. Your courage wasn't flashy. It wasn't a grand display of strength for the world to see. No, your courage was quiet. It was humble. It was the courage to keep moving forward even when everything inside of you wanted to give up. It was the courage to get out of bed even when the weight of the world felt unbearable. Heaven saw that courage. They saw the strength that came from surviving the internal battles that nobody else saw. They saw how you rose, not because it was easy, but because something inside of you refused to die. You may not have had the energy or the confidence to do anything grand, but your simple choice to stand was courage incarnate. It was the kind of courage that doesn't seek applause or recognition, but simply moves forward in obedience to God's call, no matter how difficult the journey. That's what heaven saw in you, the courage to choose faith, to choose life, to choose God's will in the midst of the most challenging circumstances. Heaven also saw faith wrapped in fatigue. When you rose, you were not just physically tired, but spiritually worn. You had faced battles that no one else saw, the emotional exhaustion, the mental strain, the weariness that comes from carrying burdens that are too heavy to bear alone. And yet, despite all of that, you chose to rise. You chose to act in faith, even when your body and soul were crying out for rest. That chosen one is the kind of faith that pleases God. Faith is not about the absence of weariness. It's about moving forward in spite of it. It's about trusting that even when you don't have the strength to continue, God will supply the grace you need. Your faith was not seen in the strength of your body, but in the resilience of your spirit. It was faith that refused to give up, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. Heaven recognized that faith, even though it was wrapped in the fatigue of the journey. It was a faith that didn't ask for everything to be easy or comfortable. It was a faith that simply trusted God to carry you through one step at a time. In the midst of all that heaviness, heaven saw hope hidden beneath it all. When life circumstances try to weigh us down, hope often feels like the hardest thing to hold on to. It gets buried under the exhaustion, the struggles, and the disappointments. But even when hope feels distant, it's still there, hidden beneath the surface, ready to rise again. Heaven saw the hope in you this morning, chosen one. Even though it may have seemed small, even though it may have been hard to feel at times, that hope was still alive inside of you. Hope is not always loud. It doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures. Sometimes hope is quiet. It's the deep-rooted belief that no matter how dark it gets, the sun will rise again. It's the trust that even when everything seems impossible, God is still working, still moving, still making a way. Your hope, though it may have been cloaked in heaviness, was still alive. Heaven saw it. They saw the resilience of your spirit. They saw the glimmer of faith that refused to be extinguished, no matter how tired or broken you felt. In that moment of rising, you were displaying the kind of hope that moves mountains. You were showing heaven that despite everything, you still believe in God's promises. That chosen one is the kind of hope that shakes the heavens. It's the kind of hope that brings about breakthrough. Every step you took this morning, even the ones that felt small, were spiritual defiance against darkness. The world may not have noticed, but heaven did. The spiritual realm witnessed every movement you made as a bold statement that you were not going to let the enemy have the final word in your life. Your very act of rising was a challenge to the darkness, a declaration that you would not be held back, that you would not be silenced, that you would not be defeated. You may have felt like you were just going through the motions, but in the spirit, you were waging war. Each step you took was a blow to the enemy's plans, a step closer to your divine purpose, a victory in the making. Your movements were not just physical, they were spiritual. They were a declaration that you were still in the fight, that you had not been overcome by the trials, and that your faith was still standing strong, despite everything that had tried to break you. You may have felt weak, but in the eyes of heaven, your persistence was a weapon that was breaking down strongholds, tearing down the walls the enemy had built, and advancing the kingdom of God in ways you couldn't yet see. And heaven took notice. Every movement you made, every step you took, was a reminder to the spiritual realm that you were still standing still, fighting, and still trusting in God's plan for your life. Heaven didn't just see a person going through the motions. They saw a warrior moving forward one step at a time with unwavering faith, unyielding hope, and quiet perseverance. Every act of defiance against the darkness, every choice to rise in the face of adversity, was a declaration that you would not be overcome. It was a declaration that you belong to God, that your destiny is secure in His hands, and that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Your persistence was a testimony to heaven that the enemy could not win, that God's plan for your life was unstoppable. Heaven didn't miss a single step. They saw the spiritual victory that you were claiming with each movement. They saw your resilience, your endurance, and your unwavering trust in God's strength. And they responded. The spiritual atmosphere shifted. The enemy was put on notice, and heaven was moved on your behalf. In the end, the weight of your persistence became a testimony. Every small victory, every step forward, every rise from the bed was a spiritual battle won. Heaven saw it all, and it was honored. Your persistence wasn't just about enduring, it was about advancing. It was about showing that no matter what life throws at you, you will rise. You will stand firm. You will keep moving forward. And heaven will be there every step of the way, honoring your endurance and empowering you to walk in the fullness of your divine destiny. Your persistence is not just a sign of survival. It is a declaration of victory, a victory that will echo through eternity. Heaven saw your strength, chosen one. Heaven honored your rise, and heaven will continue to move powerfully on your behalf. Keep rising. Keep moving forward. Your persistence is changing everything. As you rose this morning, you may have felt like it was just another day, just another morning, just another struggle to get out of bed. But in the spiritual realm, your rise was a turning point, a moment that shifted the entire course of your destiny. The truth is, you may not have realized the weight of what you were doing in that very moment, but heaven did. The act of rising, the simple decision to push through the weariness, the pain, and the doubt was not just a physical motion. It was a divine catalyst. Heaven saw your rise as a declaration that no matter how difficult life had been, no matter how much pressure you were under, you chose to keep going. You chose to trust. You chose to believe that today could be different. And in doing so, you triggered something powerful in the spiritual realm. Your act of rising was the very thing that activated divine intervention. Roadblocks that had been standing in your way began to weaken. Doors that had been closed for so long started to open. The moment you chose to rise in faith, you were no longer just going through the motions of life. You were making a spiritual shift that would reverberate throughout your entire journey. The spiritual realm is more aware of your actions than you might think. When you rose this morning, it wasn't just your body moving, it was your spirit making a declaration. That declaration activated heaven's response. Divine intervention is not always something we can see with our natural eyes, but it's something that moves in the unseen. The moment you made the decision to rise, heaven began to move. Roadblocks that had seemed immovable in the natural began to lose their strength. The things that had been standing in your way trying to hold you back began to crumble under the weight of your obedience. Doors that had been shut, doors that had been locked for what felt like forever, started to open. This was not by coincidence. This was the power of your choice to rise. The power of your persistence, your faith, and your obedience set the stage for divine movement in your life. You may not have seen it, but the spiritual atmosphere around you shifted. The things that once held you in place no longer had the same power. You began to break free from the chains that had bound you. And the path before you became clearer, more open, and more accessible. Heaven was working on your behalf, orchestrating breakthroughs, and aligning your life with the divine timing that had been set in place before you were even born. It's important to understand that your act of rising wasn't just a symbolic gesture. It was a spiritual shift that had real-world consequences. When you rose, you were no longer operating under the weight of the past. You were stepping into something new, something that heaven had been preparing for you all along. You may have thought you were just getting out of bed, just trying to survive another day. But in reality, you were making the choice to step into your divine purpose. With every step, with every act of perseverance, you were breaking chains that had been holding you back for far too long. You were shaking off the spiritual weight that had kept you from moving forward. And heaven took notice. Every time you chose to rise, every time you chose to keep going, despite the odds, you were moving closer to the breakthrough that God has promised you. The act of rising was a prophetic declaration that you were moving forward, that you were not defeated, and that nothing would stop you from walking in the fullness of your calling. You may not have realized how small your actions seemed in the natural world, but in the spirit, they were of great significance. When you rose, when you decided to keep moving forward, you set something in motion that could not be undone. The chains that had bound you for so long began to break apart. The walls that had kept you trapped started to crumble. Every step you took, no matter how small it seemed, was a victory in the spiritual realm. The enemy tried to bind you, to keep you down, to keep you locked in a place of struggle and defeat. But your rise shattered those chains. You weren't just rising for yourself. You were rising for your family, for your destiny, for your future. Your perseverance became a tool of spiritual warfare. Heaven responded to your act of rising, and with that response came the activation of divine intervention. The atmosphere in your life began to change, and the spiritual roadblocks that had once seemed so permanent started to weaken. The doors that had been shut tight began to creak open, allowing light and opportunity to pour into your life. It's important to recognize that what seemed like a simple act of survival, a simple act of getting out of bed, was actually a powerful spiritual weapon. You didn't just rise physically, you rose spiritually. You made the choice to stand firm, to trust in God's plan for your life, and to move forward despite the heaviness that tried to hold you back. That decision to rise was a victory, and it marked the beginning of a new season in your life. A season where the spiritual realm responds to your faith and your perseverance. A season where God's intervention becomes evident in your everyday life. You may have felt small in the moment, but heaven saw your rise as a turning point. Every chain that had kept you bound began to break, and every obstacle that had been in your way began to lose its strength. You didn't have to do anything extraordinary to see this happen. You simply had to rise in faith. Heaven saw your act of obedience, and in response, it activated the divine forces that were already aligned to bring about breakthrough in your life. When you made the choice to rise, you were stepping into a new level of spiritual authority. What felt like a normal morning to you was in fact a moment of divine alignment. Your rise was a prophetic declaration that the enemy had no power over you, that your struggles were not in vain, and that God was about to bring forth the victory He had already promised. You were no longer just surviving. The day you were stepping into the promises of God with full confidence, knowing that your faith was aligned with His divine plan. The moment you rose, something shifted in the spiritual atmosphere. Your decision to move forward in faith was a powerful catalyst that began to open doors, remove barriers, and release blessings into your life. Your rise was not just an act of survival, it was an act of spiritual dominion. You were taking your place in God's plan and stepping into the divine purpose He has for you. So, chosen one, don't underestimate the power of your actions. What may seem like a small act of perseverance, a simple decision to rise, is actually a turning point in your spiritual journey. Every time you choose to rise, you are activating divine intervention. You are breaking chains, weakening roadblocks, and shifting the atmosphere in your life. Heaven is working on your behalf, and divine doors are opening because of your obedience. Your rise, no matter how small it seemed, was monumental in the spiritual realm. Keep rising, keep trusting, keep moving forward. Your victory is already being won, and the spiritual realm is shifting to align with the divine plan for your life. Every act of perseverance is a step closer to the breakthrough that God has promised you. You are not just surviving, you are advancing in His purpose. The moment you rose was the beginning of a new season, a season of divine intervention, spiritual victory, and breakthrough. Embrace it. Walk in it. You've activated something powerful, and heaven is moving on your behalf. Chosen. 1. Let's take a moment to reflect on the depth of what happened when you rose this morning. What seemed like a small act, just the motion of getting out of bed, was far more significant than you might have realized. It wasn't just about physical movement. It was a declaration in the spiritual realm, an announcement that you would not be defeated. You would not be held down. You would not let the weight of the world keep you from stepping into the divine purpose that has been waiting for you. That moment of rising was the pivotal point in the spiritual realm, the trigger that activated divine intervention, breaking chains, weakening strongholds, and opening doors that had been closed for far too long. But the truth is, heaven recognizes things that the natural world often overlooks. What felt like a simple, everyday task to you, just getting up, was in the spiritual realm a monumental victory. It was a victory over fear, over doubt, over every obstacle that the enemy had placed in your path to try to keep you stuck. And heaven responded immediately. The moment you took that first step, The moment your feet hit the floor, divine forces were released. Angels were dispatched moving on your behalf, and roadblocks that had once seemed unmovable began to weaken. Doors that had been tightly shut, doors you had prayed about, doors that had been locked for what felt like forever started to creak open. Every chain that had held you in place, every barrier that had kept you from moving forward began to dissolve as you chose to rise, as you chose to trust. It's in moments like these that you realize how powerful your persistence truly is. What seemed like a routine action, just another morning, just another rise, was a powerful act of spiritual defiance. It was a declaration to the enemy and to the heavens that you would not be overcome. Your strength was in your decision to rise, even when everything within you was tempted to stay down. It's easy to think that divine intervention only happens in moments of great glory, during times of intense prayer, or when we perform grand acts of service. But the truth is, heaven responds just as powerfully to your quiet endurance, to the moments when you rise in faith, despite the exhaustion, despite the doubts, and despite the struggles. This was one of those moments when the enemy thought he had you trapped. When life seemed too much to bear, you still chose to rise. And in doing so, you activated something profound in the spiritual realm. God does not reward convenience. He rewards endurance. Heaven is moved by those who endure, who press on when things seem difficult, who refuse to let go of their faith in the face of adversity. When you rose, it wasn't because life was easy. It wasn't because everything was going according to plan. It was because you chose to trust in God, even when the road was rough. And that chosen one is what moved heaven. Your faith, even when hidden under fatigue, was powerful. Your perseverance in those quiet moments of struggle became a spiritual victory. God doesn't look at what seems easy or convenient. He looks at your heart, at your willingness to stand firm despite the battles you face. The strength it took for you to rise this morning was a testament to that heart, and heaven recognized it immediately. You may have felt weak, but heaven saw your strength. You may have felt like you were barely making it, but heaven saw you standing firm, standing in faith, standing in defiance of everything that tried to hold you down. Every step you took, no matter how small, was a step toward your breakthrough. Every movement made in obedience was a declaration that the enemy's plans would not prevail. That simple act of rising wasn't just about getting out of bed. It was about moving forward. It was about trusting God for what comes next. And heaven moved in response to that trust, that faith, that obedience. What you may not have seen in that moment, but what heaven certainly did, was that your persistence began to change the spiritual atmosphere around you. You didn't just rise physically. You rose spiritually. You rose in faith. You rose in obedience. And heaven responded. It's easy to think that the spiritual realm only responds to the grand moments, the big loud prayers, the times of spiritual victory in front of crowds. But in truth, the heavens move most powerfully in response to the quiet acts of faith, the moments when no one is looking, when it feels like no one will notice, when it feels like you are just going through the motions. That's where true spiritual victory happens, and that's what God honors. Your rise was a victory that heaven noticed, and it started to shift the atmosphere in your life. When you rose, something began to change in the spiritual realm. You might not have noticed the immediate impact, but the effects of your act of faith were already taking root. Chains that had kept you bound for years began to break. The spiritual roadblocks that had stood in your way for far too long began to weaken. The enemy no longer had the same hold on you because you chose to rise in faith. Your decision to get out of bed to keep moving forward was a spiritual victory that reached into eternity. It was a turning point in your life, a moment where the atmosphere around you began to shift in your favor. Heaven saw your endurance, your courage, your trust, and it responded by moving on your behalf. The enemy wants to keep you trapped in a lie that your actions don't matter, that the small things you do every day are insignificant in the grand scheme of your destiny. But the truth is chosen. One, the small things matter more than you know. Every time you choose to rise, every time you choose to keep going, heaven takes notice. Every decision you make to walk in obedience, even when it's hard, causes a ripple effect in the spiritual realm. You might not see it in the moment, but the breakthroughs are happening. The doors are opening. The roadblocks are weakening. And every step you take in faith is leading you closer to the divine purpose that God has prepared for you. When you made the choice to rise, you set in motion the spiritual forces that had been waiting for your obedience. Heaven responded immediately, aligning your path with divine timing, releasing angels to guide you and activating divine favor in your life. What felt like a small action to you was in reality a powerful act of spiritual warfare. You were declaring that no matter what the enemy threw at you, no matter how hard the journey became, you would rise. And because of that decision, heaven moved. It shifted the atmosphere around you. It broke chains. It opened doors. It began to align your life with His purpose. Your rise was the moment that everything started to change. Heaven took a notice, and so did the enemy. You have not been forgotten. Your act of faith has triggered divine intervention, and the road ahead is now open, filled with the blessings, opportunities, and breakthroughs that you have been praying for. Keep rising, chosen one. Keep moving forward. Heaven is with you, chosen one. Let's reflect on the profound strength that lies within you, the kind of strength that is built in the quiet, unseen moments. Your endurance, your unwavering ability to continue despite the storms that rage in your life has not gone unnoticed. The very fact that you have chosen to rise to trust and to keep going when everything around you seems to be pushing you down is something that has caused a shift in the spiritual realm. It is not just a sign of survival. It is a seed that you've planted in heaven. Every moment you have pressed through the difficulty, every step you have taken when you felt like you couldn't take another, every choice you've made to trust God, despite the overwhelming odds, has been a seed that is now taking root in the unseen world. This seed, chosen one, is growing into something far greater than you can imagine. Your persistence is cultivating spiritual strength. It's watering the ground for a breakthrough that is on its way. Every time you choose to stand firm, every time you refuse to give up, you are sowing the very seeds that will produce the spiritual fruit of victory, favor, and alignment with God's perfect will for your life. Heaven has seen every tear, every silent prayer, every moment when you felt like quitting, but chose to keep moving forward. And each of those moments, each of those acts of faith is now growing into a harvest of strength that will carry you through the seasons to come. What you might not see in the natural is that your endurance has been recognized by the spiritual realm. Your perseverance, your ability to keep trusting, even when life's challenges seem insurmountable, has set in motion a divine response. When you keep moving forward, even in the quiet moments, when no one else is around to see your struggle, heaven is at work. The spiritual realm responds to your faith, to your unwavering trust in God's promises. It responds to the quiet courage you've shown in the face of adversity. While the world may not see the battles you fought, in silence heaven does. Your perseverance has stirred the heart of God. Your trust in Him, even when you couldn't see the path ahead, has caused heaven to move on your behalf. The angels are dispatched, and the power of heaven begins to align with your actions. Your quiet courage, the kind that doesn't need applause or recognition, is what moves mountains in the spiritual realm. You may feel like your efforts are small, like no one sees the weight you carry, but God sees it all, and He is honoring your faithfulness. He is responding to your choice to keep going, to keep trusting, and to keep rising even when everything in you wanted to stay down. Every time you choose to trust God and rise, heaven's power moves on your behalf, bringing about change. You may not feel it immediately, but know that your endurance is causing ripples in the spiritual realm. The more you stand firm in faith, the more heaven's power is released. Your perseverance is a form of spiritual warfare, one that doesn't require shouting or fighting with your own strength, but instead it requires a quiet, unyielding faith in God's promises. And every time you trust Him and continue, you are setting the stage for the miraculous. You may not always see the immediate results of your faith, but rest assured that heaven is working behind the scenes. When you rise in trust, you activate divine intervention that shifts the atmosphere around you. Roadblocks that once seemed impossible to overcome begin to crumble. Doors that had been closed to you start to open. Every act of trust, every step you take in faith, is releasing the power of heaven into your life. Heaven moves when you move in faith. Your choice to rise, your choice to endure, is what aligns you with the divine timing and the breakthroughs that God has prepared for you. You might not see it now, but every single act of perseverance is positioning you for the breakthrough you've been waiting for. The endurance you've shown has already begun to yield results. In the natural, it might seem like you've been fighting a long battle with little visible progress, but in the spiritual realm, things are shifting. The seeds of your perseverance are sprouting, and they are taking root in heaven. What you've sowed in faith will soon bear fruit. Heaven is responding to your persistence, and God is honoring your trust in Him. His power is moving on your behalf, shifting circumstances, breaking chains, and opening doors. But your endurance is also doing something else. It is deepening your spiritual strength. Every time you choose to endure, you grow stronger. Every trial you face, every challenge you overcome, is building spiritual muscles that will carry you through the next season. Your spiritual endurance is not just about surviving. It's about growing stronger, deeper, and more aligned with God's purpose for your life. Each challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen your foundation, to build your spiritual resilience, and to deepen your relationship with God. The more you choose to trust Him, the more His strength is made perfect in your weakness. The more you endure, the more you become the person He has called you to be. The strength you are building through your endurance is not just for today, it's for the future. It's for the plans and purposes that God has for you. And it's for the divine breakthroughs that are waiting just ahead. You may not fully see the impact of your endurance in this moment, but trust that it is laying the foundation for the miraculous. The more you persevere, the more heaven is aligning things in the spiritual realm to bring about the fulfillment of God's promises in your life. What you are enduring right now is producing something eternal. Your faith is being refined, your trust is being solidified, and your foundation is becoming unshakable. You are being prepared for what God has ahead, and that preparation is happening in an unseen realm. Every time you choose to rise, to trust, to endure, you are becoming more of the person God needs you to be for what's coming. Your endurance is strengthening your spirit, and it's positioning you for the next level of blessings, breakthroughs, and divine purpose. So, chosen one, let your endurance become your strength. Let the quiet moments of perseverance, when no one else is watching, be the foundation of your spiritual victories. Know that heaven is honoring your faithfulness, your persistence, and your trust in God. Every time you rise, every time you endure, you are releasing heaven's power into your life. Your faith is moving mountains, your trust is breaking chains, and your endurance is positioning you for the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Keep pressing forward, keep trusting, keep enduring. Your endurance is not just a survival tactic. It's the key to unlocking the divine breakthroughs, strength, and spiritual growth that God has prepared for you. Your quiet courage is changing everything, and heaven is moving on your behalf. Keep going. Keep rising. Your victory is in your endurance. Chosen one, as you stand at this moment in your journey, know that heaven has already begun to reward your actions. The steps you've taken, the endurance you've shown, and the faith you've held on to in the face of adversity have not gone unnoticed. Heaven has seen every quiet victory, every moment when you chose to rise, every act of faith, no matter how small it may have seemed in the natural. And now, as you've walked through the valley of challenges, you are entering into a new season, one of divine favor and breakthrough. The heavens have opened, and what once felt like an uphill battle is now a path lined with the blessings and promises of God. This is the season where what you have sown in perseverance is about to yield an abundant harvest. You have stepped into a new chapter of your story, a chapter where God's favor is upon you, where breakthroughs are unfolding, and where everything you've been waiting for is coming to fruition. Heaven is moving on your behalf. Your actions, your rise, your endurance have positioned you for a divine shift, and now you are walking in the rewards of your perseverance. This is a time to embrace the new season that is unfolding before you, one filled with favor, divine appointments, and the manifestation of God's promises. What you may have thought was just another small, ordinary act of survival has been documented in the heavenly courts as a moment of divine courage. Your rise, your trust, your unwavering faith in God during the difficult moments of your life was a declaration of spiritual dominance. You showed the enemy that no matter what comes against you, no matter the obstacles you face, you will rise in faith. Your perseverance has become your spiritual weapon, and it is a weapon that has been recognized in the spiritual realm. It is a weapon that has shattered chains, dismantled strongholds, and weakened the power of darkness. Heaven has marked this moment in your life not as a time of defeat, but as a time of victory. Your small act of survival became a moment of divine courage that shifted the spiritual atmosphere in your favor. Your endurance has been seen by God as a powerful declaration that you will not be moved by fear or by the enemy's tactics. Instead, you have chosen to trust in His divine timing, to stand firm in His promises, and to continue walking forward even when the road seemed uncertain. This is a moment that heaven has taken note of, and now it is time for you to walk in the reward of that divine courage and spiritual dominance. Now chosen. One, it is time to walk in the confidence that heaven has marked this as a turning point in your story. Everything is shifting in your favor. No longer will you be held back by the same fears, doubts, and obstacles that once tried to define you. You've crossed over into a new season, a season of breakthrough favor and divine alignment. Heaven has seen your struggle, your perseverance, and your quiet courage, and now the divine reward is beginning to manifest in your life. The doors that were once closed are now opening. The roadblocks that once seemed unmovable are now crumbling. The blessings that have been delayed are now coming to you in divine timing. Heaven has taken note of your actions, chosen one, and everything is aligning with God's perfect plan for you. This is your time to walk forward with confidence, knowing that the heavens are backing you. You are no longer walking in the shadow of struggle. You are walking in the light of divine favor, knowing that your perseverance has paved the way for the breakthroughs that are on the horizon. Walk in the authority that heaven has granted you. The shift has already happened. It is now time for you to claim the victory, to claim the promises that are yours, and to walk in the fullness of the destiny God has prepared for you. As you continue on this journey, Chosen One, I encourage you to engage with this message by liking, commenting, and subscribing as an outward declaration of agreement with what God is doing in your life. Let your actions be a testament to your faith, your trust, and your alignment with His divine purpose for you. Every small step you take in faith is part of the larger divine plan that is unfolding. Recognize the power of perseverance and understand that each moment of endurance, each choice to rise in faith, is contributing to the fulfillment of God's promises in your life. Your small actions are not insignificant. They are part of the bigger picture, part of the divine story that God is writing for you. As you continue to trust, continue to rise, and continue to persevere, you are aligning yourself with God's perfect timing, and He will bring about the breakthroughs that you have been waiting for. Now, let's pray together. Chosen One. Father God, I thank You for the strength You have given this listener. I thank You for their endurance, their quiet courage, and their unwavering trust in You. Lord, You have seen every moment of their struggle, every tear they have shed, and every time they have chosen to rise in faith. And now, Father, I ask for Your divine favor to be poured out upon them in this new season. I ask for supernatural acceleration in their destiny. Open doors that have been shut. Break through every roadblock. Release Your blessings upon their life in abundance. Lord, I ask that You would strengthen them even further, that You would continue to give them the endurance they need to walk in the fullness of their divine purpose. May they walk in the confidence that You are with them, that You are guiding them, and that You are working all things together for their good. We declare that this is their season of breakthrough favor and divine alignment. In Jesus' name, amen. Chosen One, keep walking forward. Heaven has already begun to move on your behalf, and your breakthrough is closer than you think. Keep trusting, keep persevering, and know that divine favor is already on its way.